This is the Easy Pro Dovetail Jig. Using it, you can make dovetail joints halfway or all the way through. And all you need is your router, safety equipment, and some clamps. Or you could also use it on your router table. So we're going to be making dovetail joints today. Right out of the box, you'll have your fully assembled jig, an instruction booklet, and an accessories case, which has 4 thumb screws used to clamp the wood, your dovetail cutter with bearings, 4 clamp pads, and the offset tool. The only assembly required on the jig is to install the 4 clamping thumb screws. After it's screwed in, push on the clamp pad. Router bit end bushings get inserted into your router and clamped in securely. It's always a good idea to have the router unplugged while you do this. The jig has a depth adjustment plate. This can be used to set the height of your dovetail bit in your router. So we're going to set the depth plate to 1/2 inch, which is the height of our cutting bit. We first loosen the 2 screws that clamp down the adjusting plate, and we slide down the top edge and align it with the 1/2 inch markings on both sides, and then we tighten the plate. So now we're using the depth plate to adjust the height of the router bit. So you adjust the height of your router bit so that it just touches the top of the depth plate. So now we'll be cutting the tails portion of the joint. We install the board so that it's centered. We'll center the board in this portion of the jig so that the tails pattern will be centered on the finished piece. And then clamp it down. If your wood is thinner than the spacing of these 2, you can either readjust the thumb screw to the center position or take a clamp from the other side and use 3. So it fits over the edge of your workbench, and you'll either clamp the wood to your bench or clamp the jig to the bench. So we're now going to cut the tails portion of the joint, starting from the left and moving to the right, because you get a cleaner cut that way. Alright. Since the 2 outside tails are incomplete, you can cut them off and use the remaining 3, or you could leave them intact and complete the joint as is. So we'll now unclamp it from the table and remove the wood from the jig. So if we're cutting a piece of wood that's wider than the jig, we'll have to make the cuts in 2 steps. To align the wood, we'll first need to mark center so we can ensure that our pattern will be centered on the board. We'll now align the center mark with one of the pattern fingers, which will ensure that there's a tail centered on the board. and clamp it into the jig. Alright, so now I'm just we'll now have to shift the board over to finish the remainder of the cut. So we unclamp our wood from our jig and shift it over.